Welcome to episode 55 of the Cycling Europe podcast. My name is Andrew Sykes, and welcome to the fourth part of my series of podcasts all about cycling around Europe in the summer of 2022. My grand tour, mainly in France, but also taking in the Low Countries and then heading into Switzerland and down the Rhine through Germany, back into the Netherlands before the beginning of September when I have to return to work. Now, this particular episode is going to be all about cycling through Brittany. Today is Wednesday good question. Is it the 19th? I'm not sure. But anyway, it's a Wednesday, and I've already actually been in Brittany since the weekend. Spent a couple of nights at a campsite just to the west of Mont-Saint-Michel. And if you listen to the previous episode of the podcast, you'll know exactly where I was staying. Took a day off. It was a very, very hot day on Monday, so took a break. And then yesterday, set off in the direction of Saint-Malo and then Dinard. Cycled around 70-75 kilometres altogether and finished in a homestay campsite near Saint-Briac-sur-Mer, which is where I'm currently standing. In fact, I'm in the Place du Centre, very busy little place. Not just one boulangerie, but three of them in such a small square. That's competition for you. Now, I've been following the EuroVelo 4, also known as the Velomaritime, since, even before arriving at Mont-Saint-Michel, because it also coalesces with the Vélo Scénie, which I was following from Chartres. But now it's just the EuroVelo 4, Velomaritime. That will take me as far as Morlaix, if I remember my places. And then when I'm in Morlaix, I meet the EuroVelo 1, also known as the Vélo Odyssée, here in France. And then I'll head south through Brittany in the direction of Nantes. Now, yesterday, as I said, headed off in the direction of Saint-Malo and Dinard. It was very, very varied in terms of the terrain, varied in terms of the cycling, also varied in terms of the weather. After a very, very hot day on Monday, it was actually quite cool yesterday, and it even rained, which was quite welcome. Did I follow the EuroVelo 4? Well, I tried to, but it was a lot more complicated than simply following a railway line. So yes, I did sometimes I didn't. The bit that I missed out was basically when I travelled from Saint-Malo to get to Dinard. There is a barrage across the estuary, and it's far, far quicker. It's not very cycle friendly, however. Wouldn't recommend it, but I did manage to get across. Somebody has since pointed out that you can actually get a ferry across there, which I wish I'd known at the time, because I would have taken the ferry. Otherwise, the EuroVelo 4 takes quite a long route, probably another 10 kilometres to the south and then back up north to Dinard. Anyway, I missed that bit out. But today, Wednesday, the plan is to stick to the EuroVelo 4 once I get back to it. Not sure exactly where that will take me to. We'll see later on in the day. But my plan by the end of this week, by Friday, so that's 3 days, is to get to Morlaix, stay overnight in Morlaix, and then spend 2-3 days heading south along the Vélo Odyssée until I'm out of Brittany. So that's the plan. So my first job today is to go and find the EuroVelo 4. I'm now about 10 kilometres from Saint-Briac-sur-Mer, and I've just found a sign for the Velomaritime EuroVelo 4. I'm just going to call it the Velomaritime rather than the EuroVelo 4 every time, so please take note. Now, you can probably hear from the traffic that I've just been on quite a busy road. Now, the problem, I suppose, with following some of the EuroVelos is that they do... I've just done it. The problem with following routes like the Velomaritime is the fact that it does tend to take you a bit round the houses. Now that's great because it keeps you away from the cars and the traffic, which means that you're nice and safe. but it does mean a lot of faffing around, left, right, and there's a greater chance that you might actually lose your way because you're constantly looking for the signs. And the other thing that I miss about not having access to the main roads, and this was also a problem on the Vélomaritime when I was following the disused railway tracks, is the fact that although the signage sometimes tells you how far it is to a particular place, I think I mentioned that in the last podcast when I was surprised it was still 39 kilometres to Mont-Saint-Michel, for example, you don't tend to get the reminders as to where you are. And here in France, one of the things that I'm missing is knowing what département I'm in. I know that I'm in Bretagne, Brittany, but I don't know exactly what département I'm in. Or rather, I didn't until earlier today when I was just cycling out of Saint-Briac-sur-Mer, and because I was on the road, there was a sign that told me I'm now in the département of Côte d'Amour, which is really useful to know. Right, I'm going to get away from this busy road and start following the Velomaritime rather than making it up as I go along. I've checked, it is actually Wednesday the 20th for the people who like their correct dates. So Wednesday the 20th of July. Now, I mentioned that the first 2 nights in Brittany were spent at a campsite, a very good campsite. It was called Camping les Cousinons, near a village called Ross-les-Cousinons. They'd gone out of their way to really cater for people who were on bikes and people who were walking. There was a little area, a free camping area, still had to pay for it of course, but free in the sense that you could put your tent wherever you liked. There was a shed with tables in it, chairs, plugs for electricity and things like that. So really, really good at catering for the needs of people like me who just turn up. And I think, although I did ring them up earlier in the day because their website suggested that they were actually booked up, the beauty of the free camping area is that basically you can just put as many people on there physically who will fit, and you could have easily doubled the number of people who were there on the first night. The second night there was just me and another couple. Last night, however, I think I must have chosen the busiest country road in the world, or rather the Vélomaritime has. Right, that's them gone. Last night, well, about a week or more ago, I stayed in a campsite along the Vélomaritime and I got chatting to a French couple, and they mentioned something called home camper. Now, I'd never heard of this, although I've heard of similar schemes, I think. But this one was called home camper, and it seems to be a French-based thing, whereby people rent out space in their garden. And later that day, I didn't do anything about it immediately, but later that day I was cycling somewhere, and I saw a little notice pinned to a telegraph pole, and at the bottom there was a QR code. It was advertising people to camp in someone's garden, and I scanned the QR code, and lo and behold it took me to the home camper website. I cannot believe this is so busy. Where the hell am I going? Does this lead to the Champs-Élysées or something? Good God. Right. Right, where was I? Yeah, it took me to the home camper website and I registered, and last night was the first time I'd used it. Basically, it was a couple, a retired couple, just outside Saint-Briac-sur-Mer, who had a very large field next to their house, which they rented out for people to put their tents in. And last night there were 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 groups of people, some individual, some in pairs, who were camping there. It cost me, well, on the website it said €10. It actually cost me €13, presumably that's the local tourist tax. There was a shower, somewhere to wash your clothes, somewhere to wash your dishes. The thing that surprises me is that actually they're allowed to get away with it in a place like France, because you'd think that the campsite owners would be up in arms about all these people renting out their gardens for people to camp in, because that's kind of taking business away from them. But I assume it's perfectly legal, nobody's stopping them doing it, and the retired couple who rented out the field where I was last night, well, they must be making good money. They must be making, well, last night they probably made 50, 60 quid, which is not bad going if you can do that most days during the summer season. Good luck to them. Oh, this is much better. Off-road. I'm suspicious. I think I may be on another railway track. I've just cycled through what seemed very much like a cut-in in what was once a railway. Anyway, yesterday was, like I say, a really varied day. Also used the opportunity of doing a few odd jobs along the way. My GoPro camera, which has stopped working properly, basically it, even when the battery was fully charged, would shut down after a few seconds, telling me that there was no charge left in the battery. After numerous discussions with the GoPro support people, they weren't really that helpful. I've decided that the only solution is to send back my GoPro, which I did yesterday, and to an expense that I hope I'm going to get back when I get back to Britain. I bought another one in the Fnac or just outside Dinard, and I set it up last night, and that is working, hopefully. But anyway, I sent that back last night. Used the opportunity of sending back a couple of other things, and I did mention this on the blog. A couple of interesting suggestions as to what it might be that I sent back, but I sent back my analogue watch because I found I wasn't wearing it. I haven't used an analogue watch back in Britain for about a year, 18 months now. I've started using an Apple Watch, but obviously that needs charging, so I didn't want to bring it along with me because it's just yet another thing to charge. But I found I wasn't actually wearing the watch at all, so that went back to Britain. Also sent back a couple of maps, and yeah, the other functional thing that I did yesterday, apart from stock up on things like soap and sun protection cream, was I pulled in at a car wash, and Wanda, my trusty steed, my bike, my Koga World Traveller, and the panniers were just filthy, covered in dust from the disused railways of the Vélo. So I bit the bullet, paid my €2, and for 2 or 3 minutes Wanda got a good drenching and was sparkling again after all those days in the dust of the Vélo. Now, apart from that, I have a carbon belt on this bike, and it's brilliant. Touch wood. There's no wood to touch, but anyway, imagine I'm touching wood. It's brilliant. It is hopefully maintenance free. All that I do is occasionally I spray some silicone lubricant on it, but I've yet to find a small can of silicone lubricant. So when I've been away on trips in the past, and certainly on this one, I haven't taken any silicone lubricant with me. But what I do have to do, especially if it's very dry, is just make sure it's kept watered, and that means it doesn't tend to squeak. And you can imagine it was squeaking with all the dust and the dryness along the Vélo Sunny, it was beginning to squeak quite loudly. Bonjour. Est-ce que vous avez une carte pour la Vélomaritime en Bretagne?
Vous allez vers quelle direction?
Je vais dans la direction de Morlaix.
Okay. Donc ici dans les Côtes d'Armor, c'est divisé en 5 parties.
Okay.
Et donc dans le sens où vous allez, ça fait 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Okay.
Donc ça c'est la 5 sur 5. Voilà, donc on est ici à Matignon.
Okay.
Quand c'est en violet, c'est de la voie partagée avec les voitures. Et ici, c'est de la voie que pour les vélos.
Ok, parfait.
Ok, et je vais vous donner toutes les autres cartes aussi.
Parfait.
Voilà.
Ça, c'est 5 sur 5.
Oui, je vous donne.
Oh là là. Et 1 sur 5, c'est...
C'est presque Morlaix, mais pas encore.
Oh, ça serait formidable si vous en avez tous les 5.
Oui, oui, je les ai, je vous les donner. Ça, c'est la 4.
Parfait, merci.
Là. Voilà.
Formidable, merci.
Et c'est gratuit.
Ok, parfait. J'ai aussi une question. Quand je suis entré dans la ville, c'était marqué Matignon, historique Grimaldi de Monaco.
Oui.
Quel est le lien avec les Grimaldi de Monaco?
Alors, le lien il est très vieux. En fait, le sire Gouillon de Matignon a épousé la fille Grimaldi avec obligation de perdre son nom au profit des Grimaldi. Et c'est comme ça en fait que la commune a été liée à la famille de Monaco. Donc les ancêtres du prince Albert sont des Bretons, des filles de Monaco.
Et ça, il y a combien d'années?
C'était en 1700, quelque chose comme ça. Mais Matignon a un lien très fort avec Monaco.
Ouais.
Ils font des échanges une fois par an. Donc les amis du passé de Matignon vont à Monaco et sont reçus par l'historien. Le prince Albert est venu. Quand il y a un événement, tout est coloré en blanc et rouge. Ils sonnent les cloches.
If your French is not up to speed, basically she gave me 5 maps covering the route through the département of Côte d'Armor, from more or less Mont-Saint-Michel to nearly to Morlaix. And she also answered my question about what the connection was between the town of Matignon and that sign that I saw when I entered the town, which referred to it as being a historical site with connections to the Grimaldis of Monaco. Well, she was saying that in the 18th century there was a marriage between somebody who lived in Matignon and one of the Grimaldi family, and that the connections still exist to this day. She said that Prince Albert of Monaco had been to visit, and also that they have regular visits, exchanges with the people of Monaco. So who knew, eh? Who knew that the Grimaldis of Monaco had that connection right up in the other far corner of France, in Brittany.
Cherchant dans ma liste celle qui pour le soir pourrait par faveur se pendre à mon cou. Mettrai en vie bien sûr sous mon maquillage, mais la voix est là, le geste est précis et j'ai du ressort. Mon cœur s'est aigri un peu en prenant de l'âge, mais j'ai des idées, je connais mon métier, j'y crois encore. J'ai fait sous mes pieds de sortir la scène, de voir devant moi un peu plus qu'assis, j'ai le cœur battant. Je n'ai pas aidé, je n'ai pas aidé, mais au fond de moi je suis sûr au moins que j'ai du talent. Mon complet bleu, y'a rien que je porte.
Okay, I'm Cyril Papon. I'm living in south of France in Toulon. I was a former sailor in the French Navy and father of 3 kids. And we are building an association around cyclotourism to promote the cyclotourism in France. It's pretty new. We just began the idea in June, and then we built up an animation, a stand to suggest photo box a free energy photo box with a solar energy power to give a picture, a souvenir for the cyclotourist on the cycloroutes in France.
Okay, and we're very close to what's it called?
Cap Fréhel.
Cap Fréhel.
Yeah.
We're on the cycle route, obviously the EuroVelo 4, the Velomaritime, and it says les cyclos sont nos héros.
Oui,
and then your association is called souriez-vous-pédalez.com.
That's it. Souriez-vous-pédalez, and we have a website which is souriez-vous-pédalez.com. It's just pretty new, and we are building the social networks. We have a Twitter account which is Souriez-Pédalez. And we will build maybe Facebook and Instagram accounts in the future, but we are under pressure. That's that's only the beginning.
And what's the goal of the association?
We have two aims. We want to encourage and to promote the social relationships and the free social relationships you encounter on the cycloroutes when you are biking. I think that is the main point. We love that because it's you are free when you are riding a bicycle, and you can smell the air, look at the persons, and very easily speaking with everybody, and with no barriers. There is no social barriers on the bike. That's the first aim that we want to promote. And the second major aim is we are invest about the climate troubles we encounter, the modern society encounters, and we think that the cyclotourism could be one of the solutions to reduce the major problem of the CO2 transport. And we think that we can mix the renewable energy with small animations, small events to promote cyclotourism with a low impact on the environment. Sorry for the English speaking; it's not very good.
And that's particularly relevant at the moment because there are big fires in the Gironde, for example.
That's it. We since a few years was invest in the environment problems. I have a house with wood energy, gardens, and I want to make more for environment and to maybe to encourage my kids to do more. So I decided with my girlfriend in June we need to build something in addition to our jobs, or what we do every day. We will build an association on our proper funds. It's difficult anyway because it needs time and money, but I think it's necessary because if people like us, I am around 50 years old, okay, and if people like us change of way of living and thinking, we can do a lot of things for the future and for the kids we have.
Okay, well, bonne chance with souriez-vous-pédalez.com.
Thank you very much. It was a pleasure to meeting you.
Cherchez quel oiseau ici?
C'est un peu. Pour l'instant, il n'y a pas beaucoup de migrateurs d'arrivée, mais on regarde un petit peu. Là, je cherche un goéland, le coffet, qui est arrivé par là. Il a les pattes jaunes par rapport et les yeux rouges.
Ok.
Faut arriver à le trouver, quoi.
Et c'est un endroit.
C'est une réserve naturelle ici.
Ah, ok.
Ouais, toute la baie, c'est une réserve naturelle.
Ok.
Ouais, c'est protégé.
Et ce sont des oiseaux migratoires.
On a des oiseaux migrateurs qui passent beaucoup ici, énormément.
Ok.
Ah oui.
Oui, parce que c'est comme une station-service entre l'Afrique et le Grande-Bretagne.
Voilà, c'est ça. ils viennent se reposer là, ils restent pendant un mois ou deux, ou voire plus, et puis ils repartent après.
Et est-ce qu'on voit des oiseaux très rares ici, de temps en temps?
Ah, ça peut arriver. Ça peut arriver. On a eu des cigognes noires qui sont passées. On a eu Balbuzard pêcheur qui est par là aussi. On a eu... qu'est-ce qu'on a eu? On a eu dernièrement le gorge bleu, un miroir qui était par là aussi.
Okay.
Il a niché ici aussi.
Hmm.
Ouais. Et autrement, on a des veaux marins, des phoques veaux marins qui se posent là. Ouais, bonjour. Ouais. Et quand il y a eu les marées l'autre jour, il y avait un phoque veau marin qui était par là. Il venait se poser là et puis on pouvait le prendre en photo. Ça, c'est beau.
Et répète.
Un veau marin.
Un veau marin.
C'est un phoque. C'est comme les phoques, quoi.
Ah oui, comme en anglais on dit seal.
Ah.
Pas un phoque. Et répète.
Veau marin.
Un veau marin.
Veau marin. Chez nous, c'est ça, le veau marin.
Veau marin. Mais
on a les phoques gris autrement qui sont beaucoup plus gros.
Grey seals, oui.
Ils sont très gros, ceux-là, et ils viennent pas ici.
Okay, it's Thursday the 21st of July, and I'm continuing my journey along the coast of Brittany. Yesterday it was nice chatting to all those people. Didn't record it, but I also had a chat with a chap from Portugal. He'd been working in Switzerland and then ended up working in Amsterdam, bought himself a bike from 1988, which was older than he was. He said he was born in 1992, but he was cycling this 1988 Cannondale that actually looked a lot newer than that, I have to say, back to Portugal. And he was following the coast with a few trains with a view to getting back to Portugal later in the summer. Now, that chap who I was just talking to, who was taking photographs of birds, well, don't know how much he caught of that conversation. He was talking about it being quite a good place for migratory birds, the estuary and the wetlands just near to where I stayed last night on the campsite. But he was also talking about phoque and veau marin. Now, phoque is a seal, and I've just looked up, and veau is a seal as well, so I'm not exactly sure what the difference is between une phoque and un veau marin. Answers on the postcard, if anybody can tell me. Just had another nice conversation with two German cyclists. I thought they might be French, so I was going to ask them what the difference is between une phoque and un marin, but then they turned out to be German and didn't have a clue. But we had a nice chat anyway, and they're staying actually on the campsite that I've booked myself into for tonight, and they said it was a great place to stay and quite cheap. It's called Camping Bellevue. Now, interestingly, last night's campsite was also called Camping Bellevue, so I hope I'm heading in the right direction. I hope I'm just not heading back to the place where I've already been. Pretty sure I'm not. But it was the second campsite I got to. I hadn't booked anything in advance, and it was turning into a long ride, 60, 70, eventually got to 80 kilometres. I did go to one campsite earlier yesterday evening, but it wasn't the nicest of places, and well, I scarpered pretty quickly after having a short conversation with the guy who runs the place. Bonjour. And I noticed while he was helping somebody else that there was another campsite just further down the road. So bonjour. So I scarpered down the road a couple of kilometres and found a nice campsite which was full, but as they often do, because I don't think they feel sorry for cyclists on their own, but they understand the fact that, you know, you can't just jump in your car and find another campsite easily, perhaps early in the evening, and they found a little plot of grass where I pitched my tent, which was absolutely fine. Ran out of data last night. That's going to happen. Brexiters. I think before Brexit we could just use our phones as we did back in the good old days of being part of the EU. I'm with Vodafone, and with Vodafone I've got a cap of 25 gigabytes. And when that runs out, you've got to pay for some more. Now, because I'm on a note contract, I don't have to pay a daily fee yet, but roaming charges are coming back. Hey, come on, you voted for it, I didn't. Well, some of you did, 52% of you. You voted for these roaming charges to come back, I did not. And anyway, there was a bit of a hiatus last night with no data, but it's back on now. I've got my extra 5 gigabytes. Now, just as I turned that corner, the wind began to pick up, which is strange because it's been a really still day. Last night at the campsite, the one I did stay at, it was blowing a hoolie, really, really windy. But this morning has been really still. Overcast, and the temperature compared to earlier in the week when it was it was pushing 40 if not more, then today has been a nice, cool 20 degrees and overcast. And I've just arrived on what probably looks like, if you're standing in the valley, a spectacular viaduct. The problem is, when you're cycling and you go over viaducts, you never actually appreciate how beautiful they are. All went to plan yesterday. Arrived at the campsite, great campsite, overlooking the sea, and stayed there overnight. I'm glad I did book in advance because it was very, very busy, very busy. Quite a few cyclists, although I dare say if I hadn't have booked, he would have squeezed me in somewhere. Now, I've looked at the map, and there's still another, following the route of the Velomaritime, there's still another 150 kilometres or so to go between where I was last night and Morlaix, which is where I'm going to join the Vélodyssée. So I've split that into two. I've worked out that today's ride is going to be about 77, so let's say 80 kilometres, leaving the rest to do tomorrow, which is Saturday. Now, in terms of the accommodation, when I've spoken to people about Morlaix, they've raved about it, said it's a really nice place, and I've been looking online and I can find, I think, a reasonably priced hotel for a couple of nights, so I'm very tempted to stay there Saturday and Sunday. And tonight I found a municipal site that I'm aiming for, which is not far from Peresguerac, I think it's called, on the coast. So that's the plan for today. I will give them a ring later this morning to see if I can reserve my spot there, just to ease my mind. It's going to be a very up and down day, up and down, hilly. I'm just on a flat bit now, quiet road, a lot of it on road as well. The other thing to note this morning, it's quite cloudy. I was hoping that the way that the campsite was situated, it was facing the sunrise, and I thought, wow, tomorrow morning is going to be great for watching the sunrise. Unfortunately, it was too cloudy. I did have my GoPro at the ready to take a little time-lapse shot, and I did try, but it came out rubbish because it was just cloudy. So I thought, when the sun did appear hazily, this is probably about 7:30 this morning, I got the drone out and I flew it over the sea and back again, but it quickly became apparent that I'd freaked some gulls out, and these gulls started to dive bomb the tent. They clearly didn't want little drone on their patch, and I basically hid in the tent until they'd calmed down. I did come out and they did start dive bombing again, and I thought, God, I could be stuck in here all day. Eventually I managed to make my escape. Spent 15-20 minutes chatting to an English chap who was in his camper van, and hiding behind that. But the gull stayed perched on a TV aerial looking down very suspiciously. But I did manage then to pack everything away and scoot off the campsite. However, I was a bit wary that this gull had passed the message to his mates, and there were some really loud squawking gulls outside the campsite entrance. I'm not sure whether they were on the lookout for me or not, but I've learnt my lesson. Just be really careful where you fly your drone. Just climbed a very steep hill out of a beautiful little coastal village in a cove called Breek perhaps, and being passed by two people on e-bikes touring. I gave them a cursory bonjour but didn't hang on. Anyway, that aside, I'm so reminded of Cornwall and Devon in this part of Brittany, which is hardly surprising because presumably they were once joined at the hip, unless you don't believe in movement of the Earth's plate tectonic sheets, which some of you might not, but there we go. You probably also voted for Brexit. Let's not go there. Anyway, interesting little stories that I've been reading on plaques and placards about this particular beach. Apparently this is where aviators, people who were shot down in the war, they were brought here, from what I understand, to be evacuated back to the UK. And it happened through the war. People were brought from Paris on the trains, it said, which seems almost remarkable, presumably clandestinely, and then they were taken off the beach here, presumably to Royal Navy vessels, and then back to the UK. So quite a rich history with the Second World War. Today's turning into a bit of a Mercedes afternoon. Not quite a Mercedes day. If you want to know what Mercedes day is, read the Spain section of my book Spain to Norway. It's not a good thing. It's cold, the wind is in my face, lots of hills, poor road surfaces, and despite little treasures like this place that I've just cycled through, called, I think it's called Tréguier, I'm not in a very good mood. And I've tried calling the campsite 4 times. They answer and then just tell me to wait, and then after about a minute it rings off. Brilliant. Saturday morning. I suppose the good thing about yesterday was that the campsite did have a place for me. In fact, they had certain emplacements that were reserved for cyclists and walkers, and I had one of them. Right, well, I didn't enjoy yesterday afternoon at all, as you probably identified from what I said in the previous bit. I've now got a hole in my shoe. I've just spent a night in a campsite with screaming kids, and one of my pegs is bent. I'm just trying to get all the negative stuff out of the way. Oh, and I'm standing next to the bins outside the campsite. The positive, however, is that, well, I've got a plan for the weekend. As I say, Saturday morning now. The weather is looking better than yesterday, certainly less windy. 25 kilometres per hour yesterday. The wind down to about 15 kilometres per hour. Same direction, I think. It did say on the forecast it was going to be, again, quite cloudy, but as I'm speaking, the clouds are moving away to the south. Yes, distinctly. And there's just blue sky on one half of the sky, which is a positive sign, at least. Anyway, the weekend, I've booked myself into a hotel, the Hôtel du Port in Morlaix. So I'm going to be there tonight and tomorrow night. Give me a day of catching up, washing clothes, sorting things out, etc. And also thinking about the trip down the Vélomaritime, which is going to start as from Monday morning. So yeah, this is the final day of my third week. As from tomorrow, it'll be week 4. And yeah, am I on time? I think I'm probably a little bit behind time. Oh, the other thing I'm going to do probably today in terms of the cycling is cycle to Perros-Guirec, which is just round the corner, not very far away at all. Have some breakfast. I'm going to follow the route for a while, but there is a train. After about 40 kilometres, I'm going to try and catch a train down to Morlaix, which should make life a little bit easier. That'll be the third of my 10 trains. I haven't taken one this week, so I'm due to take one. Yeah, but I'll be glad to move on today.
So we are Fabien, Julien and Guillaume. We are at the beginning from La Rochelle. We met there, but we are now in La Rochelle, in Brittany and in Perpignan. And last year we already made a cycling trip from La Rochelle to the middle of France, near Bourges. I did the year before a long trip. And so we start to make this every year, and this year we start from Saint-Jacques-de-la-Mer, and we are just following the coast until we are fed up.
And you're following the Velomaritime?
At the beginning, yes, until Roscoff, but then we wanted to go in the Mont d'Arrée, but they are burning, so we're not sure we can go there. Or they have burned partially. Then to Crozon, and then we will go back to my home, which is in Pontivy, normally.
So this episode of the podcast is about the Velomaritime, the EuroVelo 4.
Okay.
So what do you actually think about the route? Have you enjoyed it?
So we just made a short part of the Velomaritime because we start just after Saint-Malo. But we enjoy it because the view is great, the coast is wonderful, the sea is something we almost have never seen before, because in La Rochelle the sea is not as great as here. But it's going up and down, up and down, up and down. But it's difficult at the beginning, but it's becoming nice. Yes.
Okay. And are there any problems that you've had on the Velomaritime?
We lost our road few times, but just few boards were missing maybe, but sometimes it was our mistakes.
Yeah. I think it's been really well signposted.
But it's well signed, yes. With a map plus the board, it's okay, yes.
Yeah. My complaint would be the quality of the roads sometimes. Compared to other places in France, the roads I think are pretty poor, no?
For us it's not a problem.
No?
No, we didn't find it so bad.
They're just like English roads.
Yeah, but France is not so rich, you know.
France certainly has better roads than we do back in Britain.
You mean for cycling or what? Or in general?
Anything.
Okay, I don't know. From Saint-Jacques-de-la-Mer until here, we have not been shocked by the quality of the road. Sometimes yes, but not so much.
Okay.
Yeah.
And if anybody was thinking about doing the Velomaritime, what would you say to encourage them to do it?
What I would say to encourage... Anyway, the Velomaritime or another road, what I really like here is the coast, because the sea is wonderful. So if you like the wonderful landscapes, it's a place to come. Plus the sea and the ports, life and so on. Then you have to be ready to go up and down. quite often. Yes, that's what I would say.
Yeah, I agree with you there. Okay.
Otherwise, yes, it's no, it's great. We start to like to go up and down.
Okay.
At the beginning, we suffered a bit, but now it's okay.
Okay, brilliant. Thank you.
Thank you.
Those three guys have been on campsites with me for 2, if not 3 nights. Like he said, they started in or near Mont-Saint-Michel, and I think we've kind of been travelling at the same rate. Been on nodding terms for the last couple of nights, but it was nice to have the opportunity to chat to them. The coastline this morning, it's like a moonscape. The rocks are great big boulders piled up on top of each other right next to the shore. I'm just looking at a particularly large bay at the moment, and it is like something you'd see in a science fiction movie. In fact, I can just imagine William Shatner and Leonard Nimoy with their laser guns and their communication flip things running around these rocks trying to shoot aliens. It's a very bizarre landscape, quite unique as well. I've never seen anything quite like this before. I'm sure there's more to it than that. Must be a reason why it's like this. Very smooth, rounded boulders, but not small ones. We're talking big ones here, the size of, well, transit vans.
Destination Brest. Prochain arrêt Morlaix.
Merci, à demain. Au revoir. Alors,
Ok. Oui, j'ai une réservation.
alors redites-moi votre nom.
S-Y-K-E-S.
Voilà. Andrew.
Oui, c'est ça.
Pour 2 nuits,
Oui,
et vous partez lundi matin.
oui, c'est ça.
Parfait. Alors, est-ce qu'il vous faut le petit-déj? C'est pas marqué.
Je peux décider demain matin?
Faudrait me dire ce soir.
Ok.
Parce que
ok.
je dois commander au boulanger.
It's just past 8 a.m. on Sunday, and there's one thing that you see in all the pictures of Morlaix, well, most of them, and that's a picture of the 2-tier viaduct. It's a train viaduct, and on the top you've got the TGV that links Paris and Brest, and on the first tier you've got a walkway. I thought, yeah, what a brilliant place just to finish this podcast, climb the steps, go into that walkway, have a look over Morlaix, and then sum everything up. Unfortunately, it being a Sunday, it doesn't open until 10 o'clock, so hey, instead I've just got a view of the steps I've just climbed up, and okay, it's a reasonable view of Morlaix, but a bit obscured by a couple of roofs. Now, that's the end of my journey along the Velomaritime. 310 kilometres from Mont-Saint-Michel to where I am now, Morlaix. It's not the entire thing, of course. The entire thing is, I think, probably 1,000-1,500 kilometres if you do it from the Belgian border all the way to the top corner of Brittany. Not sure actually where it finishes, whether it finishes in Roscoff or whether it continues until the very corner. Anyway, I'm finishing here. Really interesting ride, some pretty challenging cycling at times, some very steep hills, but a bit like the place where I live in West Yorkshire, steep hills, but they don't last for very long. We're not talking great mountains here, we're just talking hills. But yeah, they are quite steep. And when you've got the wind in your face like I did a couple of days ago, I had that horrible afternoon of cycling when it felt cold. Oh, it was just too much hard work to be enjoyable. But that was just one small part of it. The rest of it, really, really enjoyable. Some beautiful coastlines, really interesting little places to visit. And I met some interesting people along the way, very popular with cycle tourists. This section of my trip around Europe so far has been by far the busiest when it comes to meeting other cyclists. Now, I did say, I think at the beginning of this podcast, that I would actually dedicate the whole podcast to cycling in Brittany. I haven't finished cycling in Brittany. I've just finished cycling to the end of my section of the Velomaritime, but I am going to finish this podcast here because I think it makes sense for the next section, which is going to be along the Vélodyssée, picking it up here tomorrow morning, EuroVelo 1, heading in the direction of Nantes. And I know that initially I'm going to be back on a railway line, which after the hills of the last few days is actually welcome. And then it follows the Nantes-Brest canal for a section. Not sure how long that is. I haven't really looked into the route, and that's one of my jobs this afternoon. So I'm going to end it there for episode 55. Thank you for listening. As always, feel free to get in touch with any comments or suggestions or ideas. You can do so. All the details are at cyclingeurope.org/contact. And if you'd like to support the website or the podcast in a financial way, then obviously I would encourage you to do so. And lots of people have been doing so. So thank you to all those people who have made this journey a bit more possible through their contributions. And you can find out how to make your own contribution by visiting cyclingeurope.org/support. So that's it. There'll be more updates throughout the next weeks on cyclingeurope.org about my ongoing journey, initially around France and then into the Alps to Andermatt in Switzerland, and then finally, hopefully, down the Rhine back to Rotterdam for the beginning of September, when quite frankly I've got to be back at work on the 5th of September. So I've now got 6 weeks in which to get back to Rotterdam. There will be a few trains. I think there might actually be a train this week. That's going to be a part of my thinking over the next few hours as I plan my onward journey. But thank you for listening to episode 55, and happy cycling.